Título desconocido, the complete narrative. We are launching straight into this massive web of deception, where mob boss Frank Costello doesn't just want to control his environment, he literally wants his environment to be a product of him. And to do that, he starts grooming a young boy from the neighborhood, Colin Sullivan, filling his hands with groceries and his mind with this ruthless, completely unforgiving worldview. A tale of two rats, a continuous narrative of deception. Now, to really understand the escalating tension of this story, we have to look at the parallel lives of our two main figures. They're basically mirror images, moving in completely opposite directions but irrevocably tied together by this shared, bloody fate. Okay, let's dive into this. Costello instills this incredibly vicious philosophy into Sullivan right from childhood, telling him, I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me. He teaches the kid that nobody gives you anything, you just have to take it. He insists that when you're staring down the barrel of a loaded gun, there is absolutely no difference between a cop and a criminal. It's a mindset that perfectly prepares Sullivan to deceive everyone around him. And this brings us to a really stark contrast between their journeys. On one hand, you've got Colin Sullivan enjoying this rapid, comfortable promotion to the elite special investigation unit of the state police. He quickly secures a pristine Beacon Hill apartment and a totally upwardly mobile life. On the flip side, we have Billy Costigan, a brilliant cadet from a family of criminals, who deliberately drops out of the academy and actually serves real jail time for a fake assault charge. His harrowing descent is literally designed to destroy his own life so he can credibly infiltrate Costello's mob. I mean, ask yourself, what does it do to a guy when his entire reality just becomes one massive lie? Well, Costigan's handlers, Staff Sergeant Dignam and Captain Queenan, issue this incredibly strict warning before he goes deep undercover. We deal in deception here. What we do not deal with is self-deception. They basically strip away his badge, his future, and his very identity, reminding him of the terrifying reality of his mission. They leave him entirely alone in the dark, just pretending to be a criminal. So Costigan's entry into the criminal underworld is incredibly violent. He starts making drug deals with his own connected cousin just to draw Costello's attention. And when he finally gets a sit-down, he endures this brutal questioning, getting his cast-iron arms smashed on a table just to prove he isn't a cop. But he secures his position in the inner circle, despite heavy, lingering suspicion from Costello's men. Right, so the tension absolutely hits a boiling point during the microprocessor sting. The clock is ticking in this intense cat-and-mouse game. At 10:46 p.m., Costello meets Chinese buyers for military-grade microprocessors. 1 minute later, at 10:47 p.m., Costello's crew suddenly turns off all their cell phones, which creates a massive surveillance blind spot. Back at police headquarters at 10:55 p.m., Sullivan is frantically searching the database for a way to warn Costello. By 11 p.m., the whole operation collapses entirely. Both the police and the mob walk away empty-handed, but with a terrifying realization, there is a rat in their midst. So, the crucial point is the sheer, excruciating irony of what happens next. Sullivan is tasked by his police captains to find the rat within his own unit, while Costigan is violently pressured by Costello to find the cop within the criminal crew. Both men are now officially in charge of hunting down themselves while desperately pretending to be loyal. It's wild. Now, you can probably imagine the massive psychological toll this takes. Sullivan seeks out normalcy, dating Madeline, a police psychiatrist, to maintain the appearance of a stable, highly successful life. Costigan, conversely, seeks out Madeline purely for survival, begging for medication to combat the severe, crippling panic attacks that are tearing his mind apart from his undercover life. Both men cross paths with the exact same woman. It's a stark reflection of their fractured, colliding worlds. Meanwhile, Costello's paranoia is just spiraling out of control. He brings Costigan into a dimly lit bar, aggressively ranting about a gnawing, cheese-eating fucking rat, entirely unaware that the actual prey he's hunting is sitting right across the table from him. Eventually, all this pressure erupts into absolute chaos. Sullivan orders tail surveillance on his own boss, Captain Queenan, hoping it'll flush out the undercover cop. Costigan meets Queenan on an empty building roof, but Costello's heavily armed crew intercepts the meeting. In a rapid, brutal sequence, Queenan is thrown from the roof to his death. A massive police shootout ensues in the streets below, and Costigan barely escapes with his life, having to blend right back in with the mobsters. But then, in the bloody aftermath of that shootout, a wounded mobster bleeding to death in the passenger seat reveals a shocking secret to Costigan. Frank Costello is a protected FBI informant. the boss they've all been killing and dying for, regularly trades his own men to the feds to stay out of prison. This revelation completely upends everything Costigan thought he knew. And this brilliantly illustrates Costello's ultimate betrayal. Cornered, Costello desperately tries to placate Sullivan, his lifelong protege, promising him, "I never gave up anybody who wasn't going down anyway. You know I'd never give you up." But he reveals his true colors here, loyalty only to himself, using anyone and everyone as totally expendable pawns. So Sullivan realizes his lifelong father figure is an FBI informant who probably has recordings of their conversations. He decides to permanently tie off his biggest loose end. He deliberately leads a police raid on Costello's drug drop. When Costello is cornered and admits to his FBI ties, Sullivan brutally shoots and kills his mentor just to protect his own identity. Okay, so with Costello dead, Costigan genuinely believes his harrowing undercover mission is finally over. He goes back to police headquarters to reclaim his true identity and collect his pay. And here, he meets Colin Sullivan face-to-face for the very first time. It is this brief, exhausted moment of apparent victory. But that victory? It's a total mirage. While Sullivan steps out of the office for a second, Costigan spots an envelope on Sullivan's desk. An envelope with his own handwriting, the exact one he used to give Costello Sullivan's fake identity details. In a silent, terrifying realization, Costigan immediately flees the police station. Sullivan comes back, sees the envelope has been moved, realizes Costigan knows he's the mole, and completely erases Costigan's police records from the entire system. So, what happens when Costigan actually tries to bring Sullivan to justice? Because Costigan is now erased from the world and fighting for his life. He leaves Costello's hidden audio tapes with Madeline as his only insurance policy, pivoting us to a really desperate climax. Costigan lures Sullivan back to the exact same roof where Captain Queenan died. In a tense, violent standoff, Costigan beats and handcuffs Sullivan, conducting a citizen's arrest. He reveals he has boxes of tapes proving Sullivan's guilt and his ties to Costello. He has finally cornered his elusive prey. But suddenly, another officer, Trooper Brown, bursts onto the roof with his weapon drawn, completely confused by the scene. Costigan frantically holds him off, dragging his captive, Sullivan, into the elevator to go downstairs so he can present the evidence. As the doors close, the tension is just off the charts. The elevator descends, the doors slide open to the lobby, and bam! Instantly, violently, Trooper Berrigan raises his weapon and shoots Costigan squarely in the head. In the abrupt shock of it all, Berrigan turns and executes Trooper Brown as well. Standing over the bleeding bodies, Berrigan reveals to a stunned Sullivan that he, too, is a mole, a second rat planted by Costello. No way, right? So Berrigan attempts to forge a new alliance right there over the bodies of the dead officers. He tells Sullivan, "Costello is going to sell us to the FBI. It's you and me now. You understand? We got to take care of each other." He fully expects Sullivan to be grateful, to join forces to cover their tracks together. But Sullivan, he immediately shoots Berrigan right in the head. In a final, utterly cold-blooded maneuver, Sullivan buries the truth forever. He files a false report claiming Berrigan was the sole rat and that he killed both officers. To complete his pristine cover-up, Sullivan even recommends the late Costigan for the Medal of Merit, emerging from this entire bloodbath as the sole survivor. And then, the narrative just cuts abruptly to a bleak Catholic cemetery. Billy Costigan is buried with full state police honors. The bagpipes play, and Colin Sullivan stands among the mourners, his secret seemingly safe, the stark reality of the aftermath presented without any moral conclusions whatsoever. Leaving the grave, Sullivan spots Madeline. She ignores him completely, and he just offers this final dismissive line. "I'll catch up with you guys. What about the baby?" "Hi, pup." "Okay."